2 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Trade Council no longer existed. In its place, the galaxy burned with dozens of smaller wars as species fought over the remains of their broken civilization. The crystal towers of Nexus Prime lay in ruins, bombed 3 times in the past 6 months as different factions tried to claim the former capital. Counselor Yinth floated alone in her portable water tank in the basement of what had once been the council archives. She was one of only 12 representatives still trying to hold together some form of central government. The others had either fled to their homeworlds or died in the fighting. Above her, she could hear the sounds of battle as Vrexian forces clashed with rebel factions in the streets. The beautiful city that had once been the center of galactic civilization was now a battlefield where former allies killed each other over scraps of power. Her communication device crackled to life. "Counselor Yinth, this is Admiral Kren. We have established contact with a human monitoring station." Yinth's hearts raced. After 2 years of silence, they had finally found a way to communicate with the humans. "Where? How?" "One of our deep space scouts detected a signal from an automated station in the Void sector. The station responded to our hails. They say they can arrange a meeting." 3 days later, Yinth found herself aboard a small diplomatic vessel traveling to the edge of known space. With her were the few remaining council leaders who still believed negotiation was possible. Ambassador Zethkar, now showing his age after 2 years of constant war. General Krex, whose military forces had been reduced to a few dozen ships. Dr. Thane, whose research facilities had been destroyed in the collapse. The human monitoring station was a small facility hidden in an asteroid field. It looked ordinary from the outside, but Yinth knew it represented their only hope for salvation. Commander Lisa Carter met them at the airlock. She was older now, her brown hair showing, gray streaks. The war and chaos of the past 2 years had aged everyone, but humans and aliens alike. "Counselors," Lisa said formally. "Welcome aboard Station Echo 7. I have been authorized to listen to your proposal." They gathered in a small conference room. Through the windows, they could see the distant glow of the galaxy they had once ruled together. Now it was a collection of burning worlds and failed colonies. Yinth spoke first, her voice carrying the weight of desperation. "Commander Carter, we come to offer humanity full partnership in a new galactic government. Equal representation, shared leadership, complete authority over your own territories. Anything you want." Lisa listened politely, but her expression remained neutral. "And in return, help us rebuild. Your technology, your expertise, your leadership. Without human assistance, our civilization will not survive another year." Ambassador Zethkar leaned forward. "We understand our mistakes now. We took your help for granted. We treated you as servants instead of partners. But we can change. We will change." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her words were measured and careful. "Counselors, I appreciate your offer. But you need to understand something. Humanity did not leave because we were angry. We left because we were ready to build something better." She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy as it was now. Red zones marked active conflicts. Yellow areas showed collapsed governments. Green regions indicated the few stable territories that remained. "Look at your galaxy," Lisa said. "In 2 years without human involvement, you have lost 60% of your territory to war and rebellion. Your infrastructure has collapsed. Your economy has failed. Your people are starving." Dr. Thane spoke up. "Which is exactly why we need your help. We admit we cannot handle these problems alone." "But that is the problem," Lisa replied. "You still think the solution is having humans fix everything for you. You have not learned anything from the past 2 years. General Krex bristled. "What do you mean?" "We have learned that we need better cooperation, better planning." Lisa shook her head. "You have learned that you need humans to do your planning. For you. You are not offering partnership. You are offering to make us your managers again, with better titles and more authority." The truth of her words hit the council representatives like a physical blow. Even now, facing complete collapse, they were still thinking in terms of dependency rather than independence. "Then what do you suggest?" Yinth asked quietly. Lisa stood and walked to another display showing star charts of the Andromeda Galaxy. "We suggest you do what we did. Learn to solve your own problems. Build your own technology. Create your own government that does not depend on any single species to hold it together." "But we do not have time," Zethkar protested. "Our people are dying now. Your people have been dying for 2 years while you fought over who should rule." "The ruins," Lisa said bluntly. "You could have spent that time learning to cooperate instead of trying to dominate each other." She returned to her seat and looked at each of them in turn. "The humans tried for 3 centuries to teach you independence. Every proposal we made, every suggestion for technology transfer, every recommendation for joint training programs. You rejected them all because it was easier to let us handle everything." Meanwhile, in the Andromeda Galaxy, the first human colony ships were entering orbit around a blue and green world that would become New Earth Alpha. Colony Administrator Paul Mitchell stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching the planet grow larger on the viewing screen. "Final approach to landing Zone 1, announced the pilot. "All systems are green for touchdown." Paul opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. "Citizens of humanity, today we make planetfall on our new home, not as refugees from a failed government, but as founders of something better." The first shuttles descended through the atmosphere toward carefully selected landing sites. The colonists had spent months studying this world through remote sensors. It had clean oceans, fertile continents, and breathable atmosphere. Most importantly, it had no intelligent native life that they would displace. Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief scientist for the colony mission, reported to Paul from the surface. "Initial scans confirm our expectations. The soil is rich, the water is clean, and the local ecosystem is compatible with human agriculture. We can begin serious settlement operations immediately." But the most exciting discovery came from the Deep Space Monitoring Team. Lieutenant Greg Foster, working at the long-range sensor station, detected something that changed everything. "Sir, you need to see this," Greg said, calling Paul to the sensor display. "We are picking up artificial signals from the outer systems of this galaxy. Structured communications, definitely created by intelligent beings." Paul studied the readings with growing excitement. "How many different sources?" "At least 12 distinct signal patterns. Different technologies, different languages, but all clearly advanced civilizations." This was what they had hoped for but not dared to expect. Andromeda was not empty. It was home to multiple intelligent species, and if those signals were any indication, they had not yet made contact with each other. "Greg, I want you to analyze those signals carefully. Learn everything you can about these civilizations, their technology levels, their locations, their communication methods." "Yes, sir. What are we planning to do?" Paul smiled for the first time since leaving the Milky Way. "We are going to do what we should have done 300 years ago. We are going to build a true partnership of equals." Back on the monitoring station, Lisa concluded her meeting with the council representatives. "Counselors, humanity wishes you well. We hope you can find a way to save your civilization, but we will not be coming back to save you." "Not even to help as advisors?" Yinth asked desperately. "You would not need to fix everything, just guide us." "That is how it started before," Lisa said gently. "Just advice became just maintenance, became just solving every problem for you. We will not make that mistake again." The council delegation returned to their ship in defeat. They had offered everything they could think of, and it had not been enough. As their vessel jumped back toward the chaos of their dying galaxy, they carried the final message that would end any hope of human return. In the months that followed, the last remnants of the council government finally collapsed. The galaxy fragmented into hundreds of small kingdoms and republics, each struggling to survive on their own. Some succeeded through hard work and cooperation. Others fell to war and internal strife. But in the Andromeda Galaxy, humanity was building something new. They had made contact with 6 different alien civilizations, and the early meetings were promising. These species had their own technologies, their own cultures, their own ways of solving problems. No one expected humans to fix everything. The Council had learned too late that true strength comes not from having all the answers, but from recognizing the worth of those who do. Humanity had not left because they were angry. They had left because they were finally ready to find partners instead of dependents. And in the vast darkness between galaxies, human children who had never seen the Milky Way grew up hearing stories of the old galaxy, not as a lost home, but as a lesson about the courage to walk away from those who take you for granted. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and stared at the screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. The alien ship was massive. It was at least 10 times bigger than his own vessel. Dark metal covered its surface like scales on a snake. Red lights blinked along its sides like angry eyes. "Sir, they're sending us a message," said Lieutenant Kate Miller from her station. Her voice shook slightly. Jake nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered. A creature appeared that looked like a giant lizard walking on 2 legs. Its skin was dark green with yellow stripes. Sharp teeth filled its mouth. Cold, black eyes stared at Jake with clear disgust. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Krillian Imperial Fleet," the creature said. Its voice was deep and rough. "You will identify yourself, primitive." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but kept his voice calm. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. This is human space." The alien threw back its head and made a sound like grinding rocks. Jake realized it was laughing. "Human space?" Admiral Vextar said. "Foolish creature. This entire sector belongs to the Krillian Empire. We have ruled here for 3,000 years. Your kind appeared yesterday in galactic terms. We have a right to explore and settle these systems," Jake said firmly. "Rights?" The alien's eyes grew colder. "You speak of rights? The strong rule? The weak serve. This is the natural order. Your species will learn this truth." Lieutenant Tom Wilson, the communications officer, quietly activated the recording systems. This conversation needed to reach Earth. Admiral Vextar continued speaking. "The Krillian Empire has brought order to 47 different species. Some submitted willingly and were treated with mercy. Others chose to fight." The alien smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Those who fought were destroyed completely. Not one of their world's remains." Jake felt the temperature on the bridge seem to drop. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, but he could see the fear in their eyes. "What do you want from us?" Jake asked. "Submission," Admiral Vextar replied without hesitation. "Your species will surrender all military vessels. You will accept Krillian governors on all your worlds. Your people will serve the Empire faithfully. In return, you will be allowed to live. And if we refuse?" The alien's smile grew wider. "Then you will share the fate of the others who defied us. Complete annihilation." Jake's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Humanity doesn't bow to anyone." Admiral Vextar made that grinding sound again. "Brave words from the captain of such a tiny ship. Perhaps a demonstration will help you understand reality." The screen changed to show the view outside. A large asteroid tumbled slowly through space about 1,000,000 kilometers away. The Krillian ship turned slightly, and a section of its hull opened. Jake could see a weapon inside that glowed with bright blue energy. "Watch carefully, human," Admiral Vextar said. A beam of pure blue light shot out from the alien ship. It struck the asteroid, and the massive rock simply vanished. 1. Second, it was there. The next second, nothing remained but glowing particles of dust. Jake's crew stared in shocked silence. The asteroid had been almost as big as a city. "Impressive, isn't it?" Admiral Vextar said. "That was our smallest weapon. Our planet killers are much more powerful. Earth would not survive even one shot." Jake forced himself to speak calmly. "You've made your point. Good. Now you will contact your leaders. They will have 30 standard days to accept our terms. If they refuse, we will demonstrate our power on one of your colonies. After that, if resistance continues, Earth itself will burn." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Lieutenant Miller was the first to speak. "Captain, what do we do?" Jake looked around at his crew. They were good people. Tom Wilson had a wife and 2 children on Earth. Kate Miller was only 25 years old with her whole life ahead of her. Chief Engineer Dan Parker had served in the Space Force for 15 years and never backed down from a fight. "We go." "Home," Jake said finally. "Earth Command needs to know about this." During the 3-day journey back to Earth, Jake barely slept. He kept thinking about Admiral Vextar's words. 47 species destroyed. Not one of their worlds remaining. The Krillian Empire had been conquering and destroying for thousands of years. When the Defiance reached Earth, Jake was immediately called to an emergency meeting. The room was full of the most important people in human government and military. President Ryan Carter sat at the head of the long table. General Patricia Knox commanded all of Earth's ground forces. Admiral Stephen Hayes led the space fleet. Dr. Amanda Wright was the top military strategist. Jake played the recording of his encounter with Admiral Vextar. The room grew quiet as they watched the asteroid disappear. "How many ships did you see?" Admiral Hayes asked. "Just the one," Jake replied. "But our sensors picked up energy signatures from at least 50 more ships in the area." Dr. Wright pulled up holographic displays showing human military strength. "We have 200 ships in our entire fleet. Most are explorers and cargo vessels. Only about 50 are true warships. Intelligence reports suggest the Krillian Empire has over 10,000 military vessels," General Knox added grimly. President Carter leaned forward. "Options?" "We could try diplomacy," suggested Secretary of State Bill Thompson. "Maybe negotiate some kind of limited agreement." Admiral Hayes shook his head. "You saw the recording. They're not interested in negotiation. It's complete surrender or total war." "What about evacuation?" asked Dr. Wright. "We could try to get as many people as possible to the outer colonies." "Where?" General Knox replied. "They claim this entire sector. There's nowhere to run." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the situation. Humanity faced an enemy with overwhelming superiority in numbers, technology, and experience. The Krillian Empire had crushed 47 other species. What made humans think they could do better? President Carter stood up slowly. He looked tired and old, carrying the weight of the entire species on his shoulders. 30 days, he said quietly. "They've given us 30 days to decide the fate of humanity." Jake spoke up from his seat. "Sir, with respect, I don't think we have a choice. We can't surrender. Not to them." "Captain, be realistic," Secretary Thompson said. "We're facing extinction. Sometimes survival requires compromise." "No," Jake said firmly. "I looked into that alien's eyes. There was no mercy there. No compassion. They see us as animals to be tamed or destroyed. If we surrender, they'll work us to death in their mines and factories. Our children will grow up as slaves." Dr. Wright nodded slowly. "The captain has a point. Historical records from other conquered species show that Krillian mercy involves complete cultural destruction and forced labor until death." President Carter looked around the room at each person. These men and women would have to make the hardest decision in human history. "We need more information," he said finally. "Captain Morrison, I want you to take a small fleet back out there. Learn everything you can about their ships, their technology, their tactics. We need to know what we're facing. As the meeting ended, Jake walked to the window and looked out at Earth. Blue oceans and white clouds covered the beautiful world that had given birth to humanity. Millions of people down there were living normal lives, unaware that their entire species faced extinction in less than a month. Jake made a promise to himself and to his world. If the Krillian Empire wanted a war, humanity would give them one they would never forget. News of the Krillian ultimatum spread across human space like wildfire. On Mars, Governor Bill Thompson stood in his office watching crowds gather in the streets below. People were scared. Some were angry. Many were already packing to leave for the Outer Rim colonies. "Sir, the transport ships are full," his aide reported. "We have requests for evacuation from over 2 million people." Thompson nodded grimly. "Priority goes to families with children, then essential personnel." He paused. "Make sure the weapon factories keep running. We need every gun we can make. 3 systems away on New Geneva. Factory supervisor Maria Rodriguez pushed her workers harder than ever before. The massive industrial complex that once built mining equipment now churned out weapons and armor. Sparks flew from welding torches as workers converted cargo ships into makeshift warships. Rodriguez, "The plasma cutters are overheating," called out worker Jim Foster from across the factory floor. "Then cool them down and keep working," Maria shouted back. "We have 23 days left. Every hour counts." Back on Earth, Dr. Amanda Wright led President Carter through a heavily guarded underground facility. The corridors were filled with scientists and engineers working around the clock. "This is what we've been hiding," Dr. Wright said as they entered a massive chamber. In the center sat a sleek black spacecraft that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. President Carter stared at the strange vessel. "What am I looking at?" "Project Ghost," Dr. Wright explained. "We've been developing advanced stealth technology for the past decade. This ship is completely invisible to conventional sensors." Captain Jake Morrison stepped out from behind the craft. "I've been testing it for the past week, sir. Their sensors can't detect us at all." "How is that possible?" the president asked. Dr. Wright activated a holographic display. "The Krillians and every other species we've encountered use energy-based detection systems. They look for heat signatures, electromagnetic emissions, and quantum disturbances. Our stealth system eliminates all of those." "We learned something important about warfare that other species didn't," Captain Morrison added. "Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy never sees coming." President Carter walked around the black ship. "How many of these can we build?" "With our current resources, maybe 50 in the time we have left," Dr. Wright replied. "It's not enough to match their numbers, but it might be enough to level the playing field." Meanwhile, at the Military Training Center in Colorado, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Parker was teaching volunteer crews a different kind of warfare. The men and women gathered in the briefing room were not typical soldiers. They were miners, cargo pilots, and engineers who had volunteered to fight. "Forget everything you know about space combat," Parker told them. "The Krillians expect us to line up our ships and trade shots like gentlemen. We're not going to do that." Pilot Kate Miller raised her hand. "What are we going to do instead?" Parker smiled grimly. "We're going to fight like humans. Hit and run, strike fast and disappear, make them afraid of empty space." He activated a display showing Krillian ship formations. "Their vessels are powerful, but slow. They rely on overwhelming firepower and heavy armor. That makes them sitting ducks for fast, agile attackers." Engineer Tom Wilson studied the enemy ship designs. "Their weapons have a minimum effective range. If we get close enough, their big guns can't hit us." "Exactly," Parker replied. "We get in close, hit their weak spots, and get out before they know what happened." Communications expert Alex Johnson looked worried. "What about their numbers? Even if our tactics work, they still have 50 ships for every one of ours." "That's why we don't fight fair," Parker said. "We hit their supply lines, their communication relays, their repair facilities. We make them spread their forces thin, trying to protect everything. Over the next 2 weeks, human space became a hive of desperate activity. On the moon, Dr. Sarah Williams led teams of scientists in developing new weapons. Her breakthrough came when she realized that Kryllian armor, while strong against energy weapons, was vulnerable to old-fashioned kinetic impacts. "We're going back to basics," she explained to her team. "High-velocity projectiles, railguns, good old physics." On the asteroid mining station, Ceres, Chief Engineer Bob Martinez, converted mining charges into ship-killer missiles. "If it can, crack open an asteroid. It can crack open a lizard ship," he told his workers. But the most important development was happening in secret facilities across the solar system. Teams of programmers led by cyber warfare specialist Helen Davis were creating something the Kryllians had never encountered before. "Computer viruses?" President Carter asked during a secure briefing. "Will that work against alien technology?" "All computer systems follow basic logical principles," Davis explained. "Their networks are actually more vulnerable than ours because they've never had to defend against cyber attacks. No one has ever been crazy enough to try hacking the Kryllian Empire." Captain Morrison had been busy too. His reconnaissance missions brought back crucial intelligence about Kryllian operations. He discovered that their ships operated in rigid formations and relied heavily on centralized command structures. "Take out their command ship and the whole formation falls apart," he reported to Admiral Hayes. "They're not used to independent thinking." That's their weakness, Dr. Wright realized. Every species they've conquered has been like them. Hierarchical, rigid, predictable. They've never faced an enemy that thinks outside the box. As the deadline approached, humanity's preparations intensified. Small, fast ships equipped with stealth technology began taking positions throughout the solar system. These ghost ships would be humanity's secret weapon. On the colony world of Titan, Defense Coordinator Nancy Foster drilled civilian volunteers in guerrilla warfare. "If they occupy our worlds, we make them regret it," she told the trainees. "Every factory they take becomes a target. Every supply convoy becomes vulnerable." Meanwhile, on Europa, scientist Kevin Roberts made a disturbing discovery while analyzing captured Kryllian technology. "Their weapons are designed for complete destruction," he reported. "No stunning, no disabling shots. They build everything to kill." This news reached President Carter just as he was preparing humanity's final preparations. With 5 days left until the deadline, he gathered his top advisors one last time. "Status report," he demanded. Admiral Hayes spoke first. 47 ghost ships are operational. Another 30 conventional vessels are armed and ready. General Knox added, "Ground forces are prepared for occupation resistance on all major colonies." Dr. Wright provided the technical update. "Stealth systems are working perfectly. Cyber warfare packages are loaded and ready. New kinetic weapons are installed on all ships." "And morale?" the president asked. Captain Morrison answered. "The crews are scared but determined. They know what's at stake." President Carter looked around the room at these men and women who would lead humanity's desperate fight. "The Kryllians expect us to surrender or die quickly. They think we're just another species to be crushed." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth's blue oceans. "They're about to learn something that 47 other species never had the chance to teach them." "What's that, sir?" asked Dr. Wright. The president turned back to his advisors with fire in his eyes. "Humans don't go quietly into the night. When someone threatens our families, our freedom, our very existence, we fight back with everything we have." 3 days later, long-range sensors detected the Kryllian fleet approaching Earth. 500 ships strong, they came expecting humanity's surrender. Instead, they were about to receive the first lesson in human warfare. Captain Morrison sat on the bridge of his ghost ship, hidden in Earth's shadow. Around him, 46 other invisible vessels waited for the signal. "This is it," he told his crew. "Today we find out if humans can teach the galaxy's greatest predators what it means to be prey." The Krillian fleet entered Earth's solar system in perfect formation, confident and arrogant. They had no idea that death was waiting for them in the darkness of space, invisible and patient as a hunter in the night. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dominator, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. Behind him stretched a fleet of 500 warships, the largest force the Krillian Empire had sent against any single species. He expected to find human ships waiting in surrender formation. Instead, space around Earth appeared empty. "Where are their vessels?" Vextar demanded of his sensor operator. "Admiral, I detect no military ships in the area," the operator replied nervously. "Only civilian traffic and orbital stations." Vextar's yellow eyes narrowed. "Scan again. They must be hiding behind their moon or planets." Minutes passed as the Krillian sensors swept through the solar system. Still no sign of human warships. "Perhaps they have already fled in terror," suggested Captain Zorlix from his position at the tactical station. Vextar made his grinding laugh sound. "More likely they realized the futility of resistance. Signal Earth. Demand immediate surrender. On." Earth, President Carter sat in the secure command bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Admiral Hayes stood beside him watching the main display that showed the approaching Krillian fleet. "They're taking the bait," Hayes said quietly. "They think we've given up." Carter pressed the communication button. "All ghost ships, this is. Command, stand by for Operation Night Strike." Throughout the solar system, 47 invisible ships received the signal. Captain Morrison, hidden near Jupiter's moon Europa, checked his weapons one final time. "Crew, we've trained for this moment. Remember, hit fast and get out. Today we teach these lizards that humans don't surrender." Back on the Krillian flagship, Communications Officer Murtaugh received an incoming transmission from Earth. "Admiral, the humans are responding," Murtaugh announced. "Put it through," Vextar ordered. President Carter's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm and determined, not like a defeated leader. "Admiral Vextar, I am President Carter of the United Earth Government." "Have you come to surrender, human?" Vextar asked. Carter shook his head slowly. "No, I'm here to give you a message. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of. You're about to find out." The transmission ended. Vextar stared at the blank screen in confusion and growing anger. "Insolent creatures," he snarled. "Begin bombardment of their major cities. Show them the price of defiance." But before his weapons officer could target Earth, every alarm on the bridge began screaming. "Admiral, we're under attack," shouted the tactical officer. "Multiple impacts on ships throughout the fleet." Vextar spun around to stare at his displays. Impossible. His sensors showed nothing, but his ships were taking damage. Explosions bloomed across the fleet as invisible attackers struck from all directions. Captain Morrison's ghost ship materialized just long enough to fire a spread of kinetic missiles at a Krillian destroyer. The high-velocity projectiles punched through the alien ship's armor like paper. Before the enemy could return fire, Morrison's ship vanished again into the darkness. Throughout the fleet, similar attacks erupted. Commander Lisa Bennett, leading a squadron of ghost ships near Mars, coordinated strikes on the fleet's supply vessels. Her ships appeared, fired, and disappeared like deadly phantoms. "What's happening?" Vextar demanded. "How are they attacking? Us?" "Admiral, our sensors detect nothing," the sensor operator replied in panic. "The attacks are coming from empty space." On his ship hidden behind Saturn's rings, Captain Ray Brooks watched his targeting computer lock onto a Krillian cruiser. "Fire all tubes," he ordered. His ship's railguns sent tungsten projectiles racing toward the enemy at incredible speed. The Krillian cruiser shuddered under the impact. Its shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered little protection against solid projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. Vextar's fleet began to panic. Ships fired wildly into space, trying to hit enemies they couldn't. "See, some Krillian vessels accidentally shot each other in the confusion. Reform the fleet," Vextar commanded. Defensive pattern Delta! But the human attacks continued. Commander Helen Davis, piloting a ghost ship near Neptune, targeted the fleet's communication relays. Her cyber warfare packages, delivered by hacking missiles, began corrupting Krillian. "Computer systems! Admiral, we're losing communication with half the fleet," reported the communications officer. On Earth, Dr. Wright monitored the battle from the command center. "The stealth systems are working perfectly. They still can't see our ships." Admiral Hayes watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Red. Dots representing damaged Krillian ships appeared throughout their formation. "Casualties? Minimal on our side," replied the tactical officer. "2 ghost ships have taken minor damage but are still operational." The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships struck like lightning, appearing just long enough to fire before vanishing again. The Krillians, despite their superior numbers and firepower, couldn't fight an enemy they couldn't see. Captain Morrison moved his ship closer to the Krillian flagship. This was the moment he had been planning for. The Stellar Dominator was the largest ship in the enemy fleet, and its destruction would send a clear message. "Target their bridge," Morrison told his weapons officer. "Sir, that's suicide," Lieutenant Kate Miller protested from her station. "Their point defense systems will tear us apart the moment we decloak." Morrison looked around at his crew. These men and women had volunteered to risk everything for humanity's freedom. Maybe, but someone has to make the hard choices. He opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Captain Morrison. I'm going to ram the flagship. Continue the fight. Tell them humans don't surrender." Before anyone could stop him, Morrison's ship broke stealth and accelerated directly toward the Stellar Dominator. The massive Krillian vessel's weapons immediately targeted the small human ship. Energy beams and missiles filled space as the alien ship tried to destroy Morrison's vessel. The ghost ship's armor began to fail under the tremendous firepower. "Captain, hull breach on deck 3, shouted Engineer Tom Wilson. "Keep us on course," Morrison ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. The ghost ship, now burning and trailing atmosphere, slammed into the Stellar Dominator's bridge section. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star. Vex Tar died instantly as his flagship's command center disintegrated. Without their admiral's leadership, the Krillian fleet began to fall apart. Captain Zorlix, now in command of the scattered fleet, made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. "All ships, retreat to hyperspace. Repeat, withdraw from the system." The surviving Krillian vessels, more than 300 ships still operational, fled Earth's solar system in disorder. They left behind the wreckage of 60 destroyed vessels and the bodies of thousands of dead soldiers. In the command bunker on Earth, President Carter watched the enemy retreat with mixed emotions. Humanity had won its first battle, but the cost was heavy. Captain Morrison and his crew were gone, along with dozens of other brave men and women. "Casualties?" he asked quietly. Admiral Hayes consulted his reports. "We lost 4 ghost ships and their crews. Total dead, 112 people. The Krillians? Approximately 15,000 dead. 60 ships destroyed, many more damaged." Carter nodded grimly. It was a victory, but this was only the beginning. The Krillian Empire would not forget this humiliation. News of the battle spread throughout the galaxy at light speed. On distant worlds, enslaved species whispered in amazement about the ghost fleet that had bloodied the mighty Empire's nose. On Krillian Prime, Emperor Zekthor received the news of his fleet's defeat in his throne room. His roar of rage shook the palace walls. "Impossible!" he bellowed. "How can primitives defeat our finest admiral?" His military advisor, General Crixenal, studied the battle reports with growing concern. "My Emperor, these humans fight differently than any species we've encountered. They use stealth and deception rather than direct confrontation." "Then we will adapt," Zekthor snarled. "I want 2,000 ships assembled. Every world these humans have touched will burn. We will hunt them across the galaxy until none remain. The war had begun in earnest. Humanity had struck the first blow and proven they could hurt the Empire. But Vexatar's death would bring terrible vengeance. In space around Earth, the remaining ghost ships regrouped and prepared for the larger conflict to come. They had won this battle by being invisible and unpredictable. Now they had to stay alive long enough to win the war. Emperor Zekthor paced across his throne room on Krillian Prime, his claws clicking against the marble floor. The massive chamber was filled with his top military commanders, all standing at attention. None dared to speak as their ruler's rage filled the air like poison. 2,000 ships, Zekthor finally said, his voice deadly quiet. The largest fleet in our history. I want these humans crushed so completely that no species will ever dare to resist us again. War Marshal Grixnal, the Empire's most feared commander, stepped forward. His scarred hide told the story of 100 victories across the galaxy. My Emperor, I will personally oversee their destruction. Good, Zekthor replied. But first, we make examples. Burn their colonies one by one. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Empire. 3 weeks later, the colony world of Haven received an urgent message from their long-range sensors. A massive Krillian fleet was approaching, fast. Governor Sam Richards stood in the emergency command center watching the incoming ships on his screens. How many? He asked his sensor operator. 200 ships, sir. They'll be here in 6 hours. Richards turned to Defense Coordinator Nancy Foster. Can we stop them? Foster shook her head grimly. We have 12 patrol boats and some orbital defense platforms. Against 200 warships, we don't stand a chance. Then we evacuate, Richards decided. Get everyone to the transport ships, now. Across Haven, air raid sirens wailed as 3 million colonists scrambled to reach evacuation sites. The planet's small fleet of civilian transports worked frantically to load as many people as possible. Nancy Foster coordinated the evacuation from the spaceport. Families rushed past her carrying whatever they could grab. Children cried in their parents' arms. The elderly moved slowly, helped by younger volunteers. Governor, we can get maybe half the population off-world before they arrive, Foster reported over her communicator. Do what you can, Richards replied. I'm staying to coordinate the defense. Sir, there is no defense. This is suicide. Maybe. But someone has to buy time for the transports to escape. When the Krillian fleet arrived, War Marshal Grixnal looked down at Haven from his flagship bridge. The green and blue world reminded him of 47 other planets his forces had conquered over the centuries. Begin orbital bombardment, he ordered. Leave nothing alive. The Krillian ships opened fire with their planet-killer weapons. Cities disappeared in flashes of light. Forests burned, oceans boiled. Within hours, Haven was a dead rock floating in space. But over half the population had escaped. The survivors carried news of the attack to human colonies throughout the galaxy. On the industrial world of New Geneva, Admiral Lisa Bennett received reports of Haven's destruction. She had been promoted after the Battle of Earth and now commanded humanity's growing ghost fleet. They're trying to break our will, she told her staff officers, make us so afraid that we surrender to stop the killing. Captain Ray Brooks, now her second-in-command, studied tactical displays showing Krillian fleet movements. They're hitting soft targets first, colonies with minimal defenses. Then we change the game, Bennett decided. We can't protect every world, but we can make them pay for every attack. Dr. Wright had been busy since the Battle of Earth. Hidden bases now existed throughout human space, mobile command centers built inside asteroids and nebulae. From these shadow bases, ghost ships could strike without warning and disappear again. Welcome to Operation Hydra, Wright explained to the assembled ghost ship captains. Every time they destroy one of our bases, 3 more appear elsewhere. We become impossible to pin down. The new strategy worked better than anyone hoped. When Krillian Forces attacked the mining station at Kepler Station. 3 ghost ships appeared from behind nearby asteroids. They destroyed 2 enemy cruisers and vanished before the aliens could respond. Captain Helen Davis led her squadron in a daring raid on a Krillian supply convoy. Her ships used the new hit-and-run tactics that humans were perfecting. Strike fast, hit hard, disappear completely. "Target their fuel tankers," Davis ordered her weapons officer. "No fuel, no fleet." The attack lasted only 10 minutes, but when it was over, half the convoy was destroyed. The remaining ships limped back to base with barely enough fuel to make the journey. War Marshal Grixenal studied the damage reports with growing frustration. His forces were winning every direct battle, but the humans refused to fight directly. They struck from shadows like cowards, then vanished before his ships could retaliate. "Find their main base," he commanded his intelligence officers. "They must have a central command somewhere." But the humans had learned from their encounter with the Empire. There was no central command to find. Each ghost ship operated independently, receiving orders through encrypted quantum channels that changed frequency every hour. The psychological warfare was working too. Krillian crews, once confident in their superiority, now jumped at every sensor ghost. Morale dropped as ships disappeared without warning, destroyed by enemies they never saw coming. On the supply depot world of Gamma Cygni, Krillian soldiers began to crack under the pressure. Strange sounds in the night made them fire at shadows. Equipment mysteriously malfunctioned. Some swore they saw human soldiers who vanished when they looked directly at them. The truth was worse than their fears. Human Special Forces teams, trained by Lieutenant Colonel Dan Parker, had infiltrated the base. They sabotaged equipment, planted false information, and generally made life miserable for the occupying forces. The war was spreading beyond just humans and Krillians. On the enslaved world of Theta Cygni, alien workers who had served the Empire for generations began to whisper about the ghost ships. If humans could fight back, maybe they could too. Mine Supervisor Veltar, a member of the enslaved Zephyrian species, organized the first sabotage mission. Using techniques copied from human broadcasts, his workers destroyed 3 mining platforms in a single night. "The humans have shown us that the Empire can be hurt," Veltar told his fellow workers. "We are not as helpless as we believed." Similar uprisings began on a dozen worlds. The Empire, already stretched thin fighting humans, now faced rebellion throughout their territory. Emperor Zekthor received these reports with growing alarm. How are the humans inspiring resistance across the galaxy? General Crixnall consulted his intelligence reports. They broadcast messages to all enslaved worlds. They share their tactics and encourage resistance. Some species are even requesting human advisors. Impossible! We control all communications. Not anymore, my Emperor. The humans use new transmission methods we cannot intercept or block. Captain Brooks had led the development of these new communication systems. Using quantum entanglement and other advanced physics, human messages could reach any point in the galaxy instantly and undetected. "Freedom is contagious," he told his communications team. "We just need to plant the seeds." The war entered a deadly, new phase. Krillian forces found themselves fighting on dozens of fronts simultaneously. For every human colony they destroyed, 2 alien worlds erupted in rebellion. War Marshal Grixenal's massive fleet, originally sent to crush humanity quickly, became scattered across the galaxy trying to contain uprisings. His 2,000 ships were spread so thin that many worlds had only token garrisons. Admiral Bennett saw the opportunity and seized it. "All ghost ships, begin Operation Starfall. Hit their weakest points simultaneously." In a coordinated strike, across 50 systems, human ships attacked isolated Krillian bases. Without reinforcements nearby, many garrisons were completely destroyed. On Krillian Prime, Emperor Zekthor faced the unthinkable truth. His 3,000-year empire was crumbling. Species that had served loyally for centuries were turning against him, all because one primitive species refused to surrender. "My Emperor," General Krixnall said carefully, "perhaps we should consider negotiating with the humans." Zekthor's roar shook the throne room. "Never! I would rather see the galaxy burn than bow to primitives." He made a decision that would seal his empire's fate. "Prepare the planet-killer weapons. If we cannot rule these worlds, we will destroy them all." The final phase of the war was about to begin.